Hey friends, thanks for joining me for another round of bite-sized reviews. I feel like we're starting off a game show here or something with that line. That was strange. But no, quick reviews. I am fitting in 4 palette reviews in 10 minutes in this video. Also, I love my shirt today. You gotta know that there's a leopard pocket right there. I got this on Amazon. There's a lot of good stretch in it, so we gotta dive in if we're gonna make time for all these palettes. 2 face palettes and 2 eye palettes, and the one I'm gonna start off with is this new Natasha Denona tan palette. Let me start my timer on myself. Need a producer in here. Okay, so Bronze and Glow palette. This palette seems kind of like a sequel to something that came out months back called the Bloom palette, and that was a blush palette. It also had some glowy colors in there as well, and I wasn't a huge fan of it because I thought there were certain textures in there, particularly the highlight, that seemed much more chunky than I was familiar with as far as Natasha Denona's single highlights go. She's got a super glow highlight and it's gorgeous, right? Well, I was very happy to see in this tan palette, they kept the same packaging design, which I think is super smart. These are powder products here, and then we have a little lift up lid protecting the creams. But I feel like all the textures here are smooth, there's nothing chunky, and I had been playing with the duo of these 2 powder shades because it comes in an itty bitty mini, so that is an option. But then I was sent this in PR and I got to try the whole thing. And the bronzer in here, I really like the tone of it. I think it's super natural. I will put that around my hairline. I will even contour with it. If you look really closely, you might even say that's a satiny finish, but it just looks really natural on the skin, both in tone and texture. And then what I would do if I was kind of layering for the biggest impact, I would go to one of the creams up here, and we have one that's labeled Glow Cream Base, and then the more golden one is called Super Glow. These are different textures. Everything in here, frankly, is its own texture. This is very smooth, creamy, reminds you of what you might picture a typical cream highlight or cream blush to feel like, and then the Super Glow has maybe a hint more dryness to it. It's still creamy, but it's different, and I feel like it's even more metallic and golden. And using one of those doesn't have to merely be a prep step on your skin. You could just wear them as is. But what I did today is I applied the Glow Cream Base just very lightly with my fingertips. It sort of recreates the texture of natural skin if you've been wearing some powders. And if we're just playing around, I can take some of the Super Glow as well and dab some of that on. I've got a dual purpose for that shade, which I'll share in a second. But then if you take the highlighter, the Glow Impact Powder, and you put that over top of where you've put either of these creams, you really see a beautiful glow on the skin. Now, another way you can multitask with this is use the bronzer as a crease color on your eyes or all over the lid. And then I love how this Super Glow shade is just dabbed over the lid, and it's this beautiful golden pop. And as I said, this shade isn't quite as creamy and emollient feeling as the other highlight, so it really, I think, wears nicely just all over the lid. So to me, I really enjoy this palette. While every texture in here is different, nothing in here is difficult to work with, and nothing looks too unattractive or chunky on the skin. And yeah, I'm just really loving playing with different bronzers lately, and I think they did a great job in here. Next up, we're going to talk about a little blush palette. This is from Bare Minerals called Desert Bloom, and you're getting 3 matte blushes on the inside. One is peach, one is pink, and one is plum. Are they great textures? Yes, they're smooth. They feel like almost creamy to the touch, really nicely pigmented, and I do think there's something in here for everyone. But I think it's a more minimal group of people out there who can fully use everything. So I'll explain. If you're a very deep skin tone, I'm not so sure about this peach on you, and this might be even a little questionable as well. This shade might be gorgeous, but you're probably not going to feel like, oh, I'm getting the fullest use of this whole palette, you know? And same for fair skin. This might come off way too deep. Now, for those falling in the light to medium and medium skin tone ranges, I think it's absolutely perfect. I can get use out of everything in here. I've had fun kind of choosing between one of these 2 and then adding just a hint of this to pump up the color some more. So I love the look of this pink. I think it looks so natural. It oddly looks kind of sun-kissed when I put that pink shade on my cheeks. And then you take this shade called You Had Me at Merlot, and it's very deep and rich, but you just barely get any on your brush and kind of blend it just slightly lower on the cheek, not like a full-on contour, but just a little lower, and it's so beautiful. And I'll do that same thing if I start with the peach. I'll go back to that color too. So everything in here is pigmented. It really applies beautifully. So great quality palette. Just think about what is your skin tone and how how important is it to you that you get 100% full use out of a trio palette like this. Next up, we're gonna move on to the eye palettes. And the first one I'm gonna review here is Too Faced's latest mini palette called Shake Your Palm Palms. And this is really adorable, and it follows the same pattern of what I think turned out to be a very popular palette called Tickled Peach. But what you have here are 8 shades, and I've pointed out the same thing about Tickled Peach, but this could be multitasking for you. Bronzer maybe, bronzer, highlight, blush perhaps. Like, this palette is doing just what that one was with that kind of versatility. But in terms of colors, you've got something a little bit coppery, kind of a soft golden bronze here. You've got an olivey shade, a nice matte rich brown, and I'll link below to a video where I did a demo with this palette if you want to see it in action. But I will say, I've been a little disappointed by the olive. A couple times when I've tried to use that and work it into my look, inevitably it has kind of needed to overlap a certain shade, and I feel like I just can't make that fully show up to look like this color. That's really the only shade in here that doesn't fully satisfy me, and it's sad because it's probably the most unique color in this palette. And I would say if I had to pick between Shake Your Palm Palms and Tickled Peach, which I have handy right here, I'm actually a bit more fond of the Tickled Peach. I like that there's a definite plum in there. I like the warmth of the deep brown, again with the multitasking ability with like highlights, under eye setting powder even. But I feel like I come away from my looks with this, with the peachiness and the plumminess, thinking, oh my gosh, I love the way this looks on my eyes. And this one, it's like, sure, it's nice, it's a nice neutral look, but if that olive isn't really doing it for me, even for 25 bucks, I just don't think it's as great as this. Now, it does have a scent. Kristen smelled this because I took this to Chicago, and she thought it kind of smelled like a tropical drink. I think it smells a lot like the peach palette, but not, well, not quite as sweet. But I think at the very least, they're pretty close in scent. But I would go for Tickled Peach. I'm a huge believer in this palette. Like this shade over here, just stunning. I've gotten a lot of use out of this, and I just think that's definitely my pick here. We're gonna end things off with a larger eyeshadow palette here that I got from Sephora recently. It's called Rustic Glam, and it's from Dominique Cosmetics. Now with this brand, I've actually been keeping up with all the palettes. I've been very impressed with the consistency in these palettes. The textures of the shadows are always really, really nice and very consistent. And this palette might be the one that I'm most enthusiastic about. Like, I really enjoy the infusion of color here, but you've also got neutrals, and I feel like all the colors included were done so in a very thoughtful way. I've mentioned in some videos, like, I'm not always all about give me the biggest, you know, dozens and dozens of shades palette. I'm almost more attracted to this more thoughtful grouping of shades, right? I think you can at a glance see some of the different possibilities, how you could keep your look completely neutral, splash of blue, pink and purple, you've got olive green, which is what I use today, and I love how smooth and rich the mattes are, yet all of the shimmers, even though some of them look like different textures from one another, one might look like a very classic shimmer metallic shade, one's got some very microfine sparkle embedded, this one you think, is that gonna be just dry? No, everything is fully capable of overlapping and meshing and just really working nicely in harmony with one another. Also, this brown is a great anchor for almost any color scheme. The other day I was playing around with a very basic bronzy look involving the brown and the bronze, maybe a little bit of this, but then I popped on a little purple, just kind of overlapping the outer corner, and I was like, ooh, that's so fun. So many things draw back nicely to this brown shade, even a blue look does. And honestly, that's about how much blue I'm into in a palette, you know? Just give me a couple really pure, really beautiful shades. And today's look really centered around the greens. So I started with this shade called Fringe in my crease. I added a little bit of Cactus to the crease, but that's not Cactus's shining moment yet, just hold on. Wanderlust all over the lid, this shimmery green is absolutely beautiful. But then Cactus, I love how it's not a pure olive, yet it's not really a forest green. And when those two shades merge on the lid, it's absolutely glorious. And then you can kind of finish off your look by maybe adding a little brown to your crease and going over the outer edge with this sort of peaches and cream type color here. And it's just so pretty. I smudged some more of Cactus under the eye, and I really just love how everything turned out. But that's, as you can see, a fraction of what you could do with this palette. And I like also the idea of maybe doing a very neutral bronzy eye up top and then popping along the lower lash line some of this berry color or one of these blues, right? Or the green. When you look at a palette that's only 12 shades and you feel like there are honestly so many possibilities possibilities with color combos and different ways you could create the look. That is a well put together palette. Now I know there are some people out there who are like, just give me neutrals 100% of the time. I know I'm not going to use the bright colors in there. And so maybe you know this palette isn't for you. But if you do like pops of color that I think can be pulled back to a very wearable place, you might really enjoy this. Again, I feel like I worked with those greens today just in a way that felt comfortable to me. I wanted this to look like it was kind of done in my style, so to speak, but with that little addition of some color. Definitely the #1 favorite out of this video. My #2 favorite is probably the Natasha Denona Tan. Then Desert Bloom, like I said, enjoying it. Don't know that it's the most versatile for everyone. And Shake Your Pom Poms, I don't regret buying it, but I don't like it as well as Tickled Peach. So those are my bite-sized reviews, everyone. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.